I have read this book, I have listened to the audio, and I've also had conversations with you, and I am a little still stunned, I think, at how you are able to be so honest and so vulnerable and so generous in the way that you have shared your story with us. And I'm going to mention that a number of times tonight because I am very taken with it. So we have about an hour here tonight, and my first question for you is, do you think that I will be as great an interviewer of you as Oprah? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Thank you. You passed the test. Everyone knows you to be an honest person, and they will believe what you have to say for the rest of the night. Good job. Okay. You are an actress.
Yes.
You are a singer.
Yes.
You are an award-winning director.
Yes.
And now you are...
I'm Daisy Jones.
But now you're an author.
Yes.
And this book is so beautifully written. Your mother's voice comes through so clearly, but you wrote a large portion of this book also. And I was really impressed with how you expressed so many of the things that you were going through. There were a few lines that you had that really stopped me in my tracks, and I kept a list of just some of them. At one point you say, my mother was the only person who would say no to God, which I thought was such a good line. You at some point say, I started to call someone to help me remember it, but realized there was no one left to call, which just stabbed me right in the heart. You say, I wonder how many times a heart can break. And you also said something that was really stuck with me. You said, I've never lived in Memphis, but something inside of me has. Arresting, compelling, soulful prose. But trying to write one good sentence is my entire job. And it seems to be like the fourth one that you've picked and seem to excel at it very naturally. So my question is, would you like to take this opportunity to publicly apologize to me for coming into my home and outdoing me because I don't come to the set of Daisy Jones and try to sing better than you?
I would not, Taylor. I mean, firstly, you're the best writer in the biz.
It wasn't a setup to be complimented. I genuinely think, joking aside, that you have something here where both your voice and your mother's voice come through so clearly. And like I was saying earlier, it is incredibly generously told, which is to say, I don't think this could have been easy.
Yeah.
To let us in the way that you have, but you have. And so I think I speak for everyone here tonight when I say thank you for letting us in and letting us know this story. When did your mom first start talking about doing a memoir, and what do you think drew her to the idea?
I think the first time I remember her talking about writing her memoir was probably around 2016. And I don't know if it was just an age she was at or if so many things had happened that she felt like she didn't know how to process them. Like it was kind of at the end of her addiction. That she felt compelled to write a book. And maybe that's what it was, you know? And then she started maybe a year later, I want to say, like 2017. But it was like a slow process. And
was she writing or she was recording?
She was recording.
Okay.
She was recording her interviews.
Yeah.
With a guy who was there going to write with her and record. And it was kind of a slow process, and then when my brother passed away, she didn't want to do it anymore, just because she didn't really want to do anything.
Yeah.
And then, once some time had passed, she kind of thought it was, I guess, a good opportunity to channel her grief into the book. But then she didn't know if the book was just going to be about grief or if it was her entire life. And I think she was very confused at like what the book was.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was overwhelmed and called me and kind of went, you know, I don't know what to do with this book anymore. Like, can you write it? Literally, she said that.
and obviously, you did step in and
Yeah.
write it. Was the process, obviously, I would imagine, my grandmother died 10 years ago, and I have voicemails from her that I still can't listen to, so
Yeah.
I would imagine sitting and listening to these tapes was very hard, but was it also cathartic to sit there and craft this story and create a narrative out of what she had shared? Because you do a beautiful job of filling in the gaps. And so was there some catharsis in that?
I don't know if there was catharsis, but I guess what I did realize is that my mind works is constantly looking for a way to tell stories, you know, and I think that is how I operate all the time, and I had to kind of, I've never written anything that was this truthful and real. So it took me a minute to like apply that to my life. But then once I did, there was kind of I was a little bit removed from it because it felt like not the same as structuring a narrative about something that's not my life, but it felt like a, I don't know, like a...
Provided some distance, maybe.
Yeah, there was distance.
Yeah. So we're all here tonight. We know the larger story here, right? We know that this is a book about people who are no longer with us. Elvis, your brother Ben, Lisa Marie. But I want to make tonight less about the fact that they are gone and more about the fact that they lived. Mm-hmm. And you write so beautifully at the beginning of this, and if you wouldn't mind just reading this short passage, which
I mean, you're really good at this, Taylor.
You know what? It's
You're
not my first rodeo. But just right here in Sharpie.
Yeah.
I was really moved by this, and I want to hear it in your voice.
Oh, yeah. In his poem, Binzie Poplars, spelled 1879, Gerard Manley Hopkins writes of that set of chopped-down trees. Aftercomers cannot guess the beauty bin. I want this book to make clear the beauty bin that was my mother.
That's really beautiful.
I wish I wrote it.
Well, but you chose it, so you got good taste. But also, I want to talk about the beauty bin that was your mother.
Yeah.
There are so many great stories in here about things that she did as a kid. You know, charging Elvis fans $20 to take his picture and then stealing their camera.
That's maybe
Absolutely
my favorite story.
Iconic behavior. Claiming to have been Marie Antoinette in another life.
Yeah.
So good.
I know, people interviewing me sometimes really read into that, and they're like, do you really think that she thought that she was Marie? I was like, she was 9. Like, I don't know.
Well, like going around Versailles being like, I've seen that, seen that.
It's
That used to be
fantastic.
mine, that used to be mine. You know, there's such imagination there.
Yeah.
Because not only do you have to have the chutzpah, you also have to think of the idea, right? It's not just, oh, I bet I could get $20 out of this guy. It's like, I'm going to go throw his camera in the bushes,
Yeah.
you know? But also there's immense love.
Yeah.
This is a person who had so much love to give. And so my question is, and it's a broad question, and just take it however you want, but who was Lisa Marie to you, and when do you think she shined the brightest?
Oh, that's a really hard question, Taylor.
I'm so sorry.
I think that something that was really hard in writing this book is explaining exactly who Lisa Marie was.
Yeah.
Because she was so unique.
Yeah.
And I was sitting with my dad, like trying to write this part in the book where I was like, Dad, like, how do I like describe her accurately? And it took us like 30 minutes. We were like, complicated, strong, funny, sweet, sensitive. Like, and it was like every single like word I could think of, and I was like, it's kind of like there's kind of no point in trying because she was so unique, you know.
Yeah.
I think that she was, did you say her brightest? When did
It shined brightest,
when did
but
she shine
really
bright?
any interpretation is fine.
I think that being a mother was like her, her thing that she, but also music, you know, like she really was a really beautiful lyricist.
Yeah.
And she really loved writing. Music really, which you can see throughout the book, like affected her deeply. Mm-hmm. So I think playing music and probably being a parent were the things that...
I will say, having read the book twice, I picked up on something that I thought was really moving, which was that there's...
By the way, Taylor was the first person that ever read the proposal.
I've never told anybody this, so this was like my little secret that I hold close to my chest. But yeah, I did get a call from Riley one day that was like, I have a book proposal, will you read it? And I was like, yeah, I will. Yes, I will. Yes, I will read that. And then you were like, oh, let me send it. And I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. And then I literally opened up the Word document and I was like, I'm not getting any work done today. I read the whole thing straight through. It was so good. And so much of what is in the book now was there from the beginning. So something that struck me is that your mom tells a story of when she was doing drugs as a teenager. And she kind of just, seemed sort of dead set on doing whatever somebody told her not to do.
Yeah.
And one of the things that seemed to have changed her relationship to that, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but was she was put in charge of a young woman who had a drug problem. And that young woman was made her responsibility. It seemed like getting this woman here, there, and everywhere became your mom's responsibility. And she seemed very moved by that she really enjoyed that. Helping someone with the problem that she was facing seemed to bring her great joy.
Yeah, I mean, that was something she talked about, that story. It would come up quite often. I think it was really like impactful, that moment where she was, getting off drugs. And she wasn't an addict as a teen. She was just more experimenting with drugs. Right. But she was taking care of another girl in rehab. And that was, it was really impactful for her. I think helping people was something that she really...
It seems like it. Yeah. Especially, after your brother passed, she seemed to find a great deal of solace in helping other parents who had been through something similar. Yeah. And I found that seemed very telling, because I think there are a lot of people who might say, well, I have my own problems, I don't want to help somebody else through this. But it seemed like in those hard moments for her, reaching out and helping someone else.
Yeah, I think that's why she wanted to write this book.
Makes sense.
To, help someone, anyone who could read the story and relate to it.
And I think she's done that and you've done that. Yeah. I want to talk about Elvis a little bit. Your mother seems... I mean, who doesn't? Super casual. Let's just talk about Elvis. Your mother seems to have been so enchanted by him. But also, she seemed, as a parent, very enchanting in the same way. Yeah. There seems to be a through line of, a sort of wild lawlessness style of parenting, renting out the whole amusement park for your family. How much of that, how much was she aware of how much of him lived in her?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think she was aware, but I think she wanted that closeness.
I feel like reading this book, you can't help but take away that she became the parent.
That's what we talked about when you read the proposal. There were all of these ways subconsciously that I think she was emanating. Yeah. Him. And what she loved about being raised by him, she was able to give you guys. It even seems like your place in Hidden Hills for a period of time had so much of what she loved about Graceland. Yeah, exactly. And I was hoping that maybe she had given herself that credit. She didn't, but and I don't think I did until I wrote this, you know,
Yeah,
and I was
yeah,
like, wow, there's
it's
all of these
striking.
parallels.
Yeah. Well, and also I see another parallel, which is that clearly this lives in you too. And you have another banger of a line on page 17. You say about your mother in relation to your daughter Tupelo. You say, she mothers my daughter through me.
Yeah.
And you're talking about how you realized that you were singing the same lullabies to Tupelo and changing certain letters the same way that your mother had and Elvis had for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, what of the joy of Elvis and Lisa Marie do you think lives in you, and what are you carrying forward for Tupelo?
I think that I always say it's like this Southern style of parenting, but it's actually very specifically my family, I think. You know,
Yeah.
like it is from the South, but like whatever way she was parented was how I was parented in a sense. And I also now sort of parent that way. And it's just this, it's really like loving and tactile and smothering and
it seems fun. It seems
suffocating
fun.
and no boundaries. But it is. Yeah, like I thought putting in the way that my family in the South spoke to each other in this totally insane way kind of could help paint the picture of like
Absolutely.
the wildness of.
But also the specificity of a family, right?
Yeah.
Your family has this legacy. You're the Presleys. You are this, American dynasty. But you're also people, right? And what are those people? How do they interact with each other? That comes through so clearly, and the love of this family comes through so beautifully. Fame obviously had a huge impact on your mother's life. It obviously also had an impact on yours. You're on the cover of People magazine as an infant. You're shot by Annie Leibovitz for the cover of Vogue at 15, which must be so embarrassing for you because I was shot by Annie Leibovitz for Vogue at 14, and so I beat you. And I feel like you just need to get over it. How did you and your brother navigate fame together as children? How aware were you, and did it feel like something you had to maneuver around?
It was so normal to us.
Right.
That there was nothing that I was really aware, there weren't like tactics or there wasn't a lot of awareness of anything else.
Right.
Because that was our world, and at the time, until, most of the first half of my life, it was very, very intense. It was like people in our trees and people, sneaking into our house or like our property and very, like a lot of, leaving the house. It was like police escorts and like it was a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that like I created a life for myself that's very different to that.
Yeah.
So obviously I don't know if I really enjoyed that.
Right.
But it was all we knew,
Well, I guess it's sort of like asking a fish what they think of water. It's like, well, it just is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also clear that your mom struggled, for good reason, with who she could trust.
Yeah.
And she seemed to always know that she could trust your dad.
Mm.
And can you tell us a little bit, especially for people that haven't read the book yet, a little bit about their love story? Because their kinship continued long after their marriage was over.
Mm-hmm.
She writes on page 165, "We were a different kind of soulmates,"
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was really beautiful. And obviously he lived in the guest house for most of your life,
Yeah.
right? And lived in her home
Yeah.
when she passed and was with her when she passed.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about Lisa Marie and Danny Keough?
Yeah, it's like my favorite part of the book because I didn't mean for it to be kind of this through line, but it ended up being because it was.
Yeah.
And I guess, she and him, like there's a part of me and people around who kind of went, oh, well, maybe she should have stayed married to Danny, but I don't know, like they weren't happy married.
Right. Well, also she had to marry Michael Jackson, you
exactly.
understand. These things are complicated.
Things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And I think that in a way, their relationship, as whatever they were throughout their life, was the way that they could function in a relationship.
Yeah.
And it was like they were family. I think they're both very alpha, and I think that in a relationship, it just didn't work.
It
like
seemed
Daisy
like
and Billy.
maybe their love was bigger than romance, maybe. Okay, we're going to take some audience questions.
Okay.
Okay. What is your favorite memory of Priscilla? This is from Yvette.
Oh, I actually know it. She used to have a house in Lake Arrowhead, and sometimes we would go up there for like Christmas or for the holidays or for Thanksgiving, and I have this memory of being in my car seat and she was driving me, like my mom wasn't with us, it was just me and her son, and oh my God, what is that song? There's fuck, sorry, excuse my French. I can't think of it, that's the problem. It's like Young Hearts Be Free to
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Rod Stewart, yes, that's the guy. And we were I was in my car seat, and it was the first time I'd ever heard the song, and I was laying there just having like the best car ride. Because I was like, this song is great. And I was just cozy with my grandma, and we were going to Arrowhead, and she was just in the front seat of like her car. It was just a simple thing.
Yeah,
but I
just
remember
with your grandma.
I just felt very like happy. We picked Navarone up from karate, and we were all like.
He was at karate with my brother-in-law.
Oh, with your brother-in-law. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So Riley's
he's my
uncle, right? And my brother-in-law were in karate class together, and my mother-in-law is very proud to be like, well, Priscilla and I were karate moms together.
The funny thing about Navarone is that, like, more than anyone in my family, I don't, like, everywhere I go, people are like, I know Navarone.
Oh, yeah. No, Navarone is
like,
very
what?
popular in my family. Like, my husband went out to lunch with Navarone a couple of years ago and was like, he's doing well, you know?
It's like, why? Like, he's like, I don't know.
Well known in the
knows
Valley
him.
specifically. I think he's got real Valley energy.
He's got an LA reputation.
Yeah. No, the Reids and the Presleys go way back.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a good one. This is from Eileen. What character have you portrayed that you most closely self-identify with?
That is really hard. I think about this all the time.
And it's Stephanie from Zola, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's who it is. I don't know. But
Could it be the Sasquatch?
It could be. It's the Sasquatch. I relate to all of them. I think there's a part of me probably in all of them, but there's not one character that I'm like, oh, if you watch this film, this is me. What's interesting that I said the other night that I don't even know if I've ever said to you is that Daisy Jones to me felt like my mom.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember we talked about this, and I knew less about your mom at that time.
Yeah.
And having read this book, it feels so clear.
Yeah.
The wild recklessness and the just intense ability to love.
Yeah, and so many life things too, like and not having a lot of friends.
Yeah,
you know, like that kind of There's a lot of her.
And your mom had so much to say, like creatively,
Mm.
and it seems like people wanted something different from her than she wanted to give.
Yes.
They just wanted her to be little Elvis,
Yes.
whereas she was her own person.
Yeah.
Well, this is perfectly teed up by accident to Sarah's question. Did you draw any inspiration from your mom and how you played Daisy Jones?
Oh, wow.
Did she see any of your performance as Daisy?
No, she didn't, actually. I know. She heard the songs.
Cool.
Which was cool. She heard all the songs.
She must have been so proud of you.
Yeah, I think she was nervous. She was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
Well, she had. It seemed like she had sort of been nervous for either of you to enter music,
She was nervous
right?
for any of us to do music, I think. And so it wasn't something that was encouraged in my house. Because I think there was, she didn't want us to like fail or whatever. And my take was always like, whatever, like I don't care if I...
Right.
I mean, it's not.
That's
like
why you started folky porn with Dakota Johnson.
Yes,
right.
Which comes up every day. So I think we're going to make
when you
it a real
called it folky porn, I feel like you were giving us something to come back to.
Yeah.
It's not an anecdote that one forgets.
I know.
It's pretty good.
It's memorable.
Yeah, and I would like to see them perform.
We might. We talk about it.
Okay, great. Okay, so speaking of Daisy Jones, maybe this is.
Has anyone here watched Daisy Jones? Well, we have Billy Dunn right here.
Has anyone here been
showed
in
up
Daisy
here.
Jones? I think they think you're joking.
Has anyone been in Daisy Jones?
Yeah. I do think some people in the back row might think you're joking. But Sam Claflin is here tonight.
Come on up, Sam. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, we'll leave you alone.
Okay, so one of the major themes in Daisy Jones, as I remember it, is it's a theme in this book, and it's hard to talk about this story without talking about addiction, because it obviously impacts your family. It impacts so many American families. You write so beautifully about how it feels to try to help someone who is an addict who you love. Mm-hmm. That was something that I personally found very moving. It's something that I can relate to. I think it's a thing that a lot of people can relate to. Was it therapeutic to put that into words, or have there been other artistic expressions that have allowed you to deal with the complexity of that feeling?
Wow.
Yeah, I worked really hard on these guys.
Okay. That's a good question. I think I bring all of my experiences into all of my performances, actually. So I don't think I'm consciously going, okay, like this thing is going to go into this scene, but I think that I definitely, like, I think actors, like, we work through things inside of us in scenes, but it's not like, but what I don't do is I don't like draw from real experiences, because I think that that's really, to me, like frightening, like, and traumatizing. But I think that I definitely like work through all of those experiences.
When I'm writing, I'm always writing about things that feel emotionally true, but never something that's literally true.
And I think that's how it is for me with acting.
Yeah.
It's always emotionally true, but it's not literal.
You kind of have to come in through the side door, not the front door.
Which then this was extremely literal, so it was definitely intense, you know? And it wasn't, you know, I didn't, when I write, I wouldn't want to reread it.
Yeah, no,
You know?
I don't recommend that you do.
Yeah.
And here's why. It has nothing to do with the book itself. The book is beautiful, but once it's printed, you can't fix it.
Yeah.
And you just got to let it go.
I know.
If you pick up this book years from now, and trust me, because I've done it, all you're going to see is like, why did I write that sentence like that?
I know. And there's things in here that you told me not to put in here.
I did. I did. I said, I don't know about that, Riley. And you put them in. But
And you're probably right, but you know what?
No, I was wrong. I was wrong. The book is pitch perfect, and actually, all of my advice comes from a very unhelpful place, which is I feel so protective of you. I feel like, no, don't let people have this, but instead you showed up with such a generous heart. And I'm really stepping on one of my later questions, so I'll circle back. What do you think it means for you specifically to be a Presley? And how does it feel to be now the sole trustee of Graceland?
Oh, it's fun.
It seems like super casual.
It's chill.
Yeah.
No, oh God. it's funny because I spent a lot of my life and career actually like living in a world where that wasn't at the forefront, surprisingly, of my life.
Right.
And in my career, like, you know, I feel like after my mom passed away, it was very different because there was a lot of attention on it and me.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it was something I was very involved in. And my mom was very like, if there were things with the estate, whatever, like I was very involved in it already.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, whoa, what is this new thing? Because my mom kind of would come to me with everything. I was like her.
From what age? 9?
Yeah. No, I'd say my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. She was very like, you know, wanted my help and my opinions on things. So I was involved with the Graceland stuff prior to her. And
there was probably always an understanding this would be yours to manage one day.
Yeah, or all of mine, all of ours, you know. And so there was that awareness, and I was, you know, it was something that I was familiar with. So I already had that. That wasn't a new thing, basically, I would say, you know?
Yeah.
But I'd say the attention on it was new.
Sure.
And I don't know, it's been very interesting because I'm not, like, she also, like, we were raised in this way where she was kind of like, don't talk about this. Don't tell this to people.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Not in a Nepo baby way. You know, like she was like, she was like, don't be that. That's cringy. And that was her, that was her take, you know?
Yeah. She would have crushed on the, what do you feel about being a Nepo baby question?
Right.
That so many people seem to falter.
Yes.
And she would have crushed it.
Crushed it. But so I think that with regards to that and in my life and in my career, it was like, I actually spent a lot of my career with a lot of people not knowing. We also have a different last name that
You do have Elvis's face, though. I do want to bring that up.
Depends
I can
on
see you coming
angle.
a mile away. Yeah.
So it's something that I'm very grateful for, and you know, has always been there, but I think now feels much more present. Yeah. Because of the circumstances. Yeah.
Well, it also just seems like,
with that said, like putting out a book, going out and talking about it is like not something I would ever, or my mom necessarily. Like we're not like book people, you know?
Me neither.
Not like you, Taylor. No, I mean like, we're not,
no, I know.
You know, like we're super open, like I grew up very private.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, and also, your mom had been burned a number of times, right? Yeah. In trying to live more openly, she learned through multiple different times that people have, you don't know somebody's agenda. And so it makes sense to be as private as you all were, and I think it's all the more impressive what you lay bare here and share with us, because the Presleys are not a family known for oversharing, right? This is an invitation to come closer in a way that I think we all really appreciate. If you could, if there's one thing that you think is the most misunderstood about your family, what do you think it would be?
Misunderstood. I think that I was talking to someone recently and they kind of were asking a similar question, and the conversation became like that I think that our family was just maybe not perceived. I think this kind of can happen when there's like a lot of fame, as it feels more like not human.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know. I think that I don't know.
I will say I think that the Presleys occupy a certain place in American culture that
I think you'd have a better perspective as an outsider.
Yeah. I'll answer this question. I'll take this one.
You tell me.
Yeah. No, but I think there is a perception with any famous people at all, that if your life looks glamorous to us on the outside, then it must be really easy to live.
Yeah.
And so when you have a family where we can see that it wasn't easy to live, you know, your mother losing Elvis when she was 9, I think for most fans or most Americans, that complexity becomes very interesting, right? And it starts to dominate the story. The Presley legacy is that Elvis died.
Mm-hmm.
This book, yeah, it's about death. I'm not, you know, we can't sugarcoat that. That's the reality. But there's so much joy in this book. There's so much fun and love and silliness. Mm-hmm. And, you know, yeah, you're at Neverland Ranch, but you are also
having
together.
Fun.
Having fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are larger than life circumstances, but at the end of the day, you're a family who loves each other and has a silly language that you all use together. Mm-hmm. And I just found that beautiful. And I'm glad that I asked the question, and I'm glad that I answered it.
I was really enjoying listening to you talk.
Thank you. I'll ask myself some more. Tiffany asks, what would you consider your greatest achievement in your career so far? And I do think she means you.
Oh wow. That's a really difficult question. I don't know the answer to, unfortunately. I could like say
I'll
something.
take it.
But
you've won many awards.
I've won so many different awards and done so. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Probably directing a film, just because it was really ambitious, and what we did with that film was really challenging. So I think that was, would probably be my answer.
Good job.
Yeah. Thanks.
Both on
Is
that
right?
answer and directing the film. Very
Okay.
good. Are there any creative outlets that you have not tried that you would like to pursue in the near future, keeping in mind that you don't want to outshine too many people? No. Like, what haven't you tried that you think you would like to try?
I'll tell you that painting I would like to, but I'm actually very bad at it.
But maybe the joy is in being bad at it.
I don't like being bad at things.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You have a lesson to learn.
Yeah. I was in art class for about 2 months. It was just me and a bunch of like elderly women.
Sure. When you said art class, already in my mind I knew.
They were like all grandparents, and I think they were all flirting with each other. And
oh my God,
it was actually amazing, but I was really bad. So the
and
teacher
it bothered you that you were bad?
So the first class, the teacher was like, "Wow, you're really good," and I was like, "This tracks." And then the second,
Thank you. I've been told this most of my life.
No, and then the second class, he was like really upset at like my placement of the things, and I was like, oh no, like I'm gonna be really bad at
You've
art.
disappointed him.
Yeah. So I left. But that would
Boss
probably
move.
be, I'll return one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, look, far be it from me to give advice, but I'm bad at a lot of things. And it's fun to be bad at things.
Yeah.
And once you accept that you're bad at it.
But that's how I feel. I really, jokes aside, like I don't really care if I'm bad at things, which is like why I sang or why I'll just like do things, because I don't.
You're not fooling anybody.
No.
When you say, well, that's why I sing, and you have a hit album.
Like that's why. That's why I'll try things, because I don't actually care about the outcome if I fail.
Yeah. So pretty soon, people are going to be buying Riley Keough portraits. Yeah. I will be first in line.
Yeah.
I will be first in line. Okay. I have a couple more questions before we get to. We only have a few more minutes with Riley, but I have a few more questions for you. The title is beautiful. Mm-hmm. From Here to the Great Unknown. Mm-hmm. Your mom recorded a duet with Elvis, right? Yeah. And this is a line from that song. Can you tell us a little bit about that song?
Yeah, so she recorded this duet with her father, and she was a little bit apprehensive about the whole duet thing to begin with, and it ended up being like a very beautiful experience for her and emotional. And I think it was like at an age where she started opening up, like trying to process her grief. And so it was a different experience than when she was younger and she tried to duet. Like, so it ended up being this really special experience for her. And this was just on a list, like we created lists of titles. And at first I was kind of like, I don't think that's like, I think she would hate that title.
You do?
No, I did.
You did, okay.
But then I was like, no, I think that I'm thinking of like the version of her that was not wanting to do the duet, but then once she did it, she was really happy she did it. And I think it just represented like the place where, you know, when you lose loved ones and you kind of live in this place of wondering where they went, where they are, like it's so there's so much unknown, and I think that lyric represented that place that, and the journey of it, you know. Yeah. And it's if we're being really literal, it's like from here to the great unknown. Yeah.
No, I did get it. Yeah.
I don't know if you got that, Taylor. Okay.
Now that you've explained it, it makes sense. Okay. And so I know there had to be a specific way that you recording an album came about, because you weren't just gonna be Riley Keough and record an album. Yeah. But you did record an album.
Yeah.
And
we did. Sorry. It's so hard. You're just there. I have to do it. Okay.
And so what was that like to know that there is this thing that your family is associated with, that your grandfather is considered one of the greats, your mom loved doing it, it meant so much to her. What did it mean to you to begin that process, and how does it feel now when we're up here and we're talking about all the things that you can do? Singer is high on that list.
Oh, well, I don't think I would consider it high on the list. Like, wow. I don't feel like I'm like a singer. I feel like I'm an actor who sang on a show.
Yeah, and then also recently at a Chanel show,
yes,
is that right?
At a few shows.
You know, yeah. Here we go, yeah.
But I think that my approach is always comedy. And so I was kind of like, but truthfully, like, I think that for me, it just felt like I wasn't thinking of like the pressure of my family, and I was more, as an actor, like my favorite part about this job is you get an opportunity to like learn all of these new skills, and this just felt so hard. Yeah. For me, for us. And we're back doing press for Daisy Jones. And I think that like there was always this backup plan that we weren't gonna sing. So I just was like, well, that made me just wanna try harder.
They did not communicate that to me. I was told you all were singing.
Maybe that was like the worst case scenario was like stunt singers, they said.
Oh, okay. And so, like Milli Vanilli.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that like once that was in my mind, I think I was like, I have to do it. And it was micro. It wasn't like, I was like, in this, right now, I need to do this thing, and I like, because it's hard and I want to do it.
Yeah, but you're such a natural.
It wasn't natural.
But I just saw the beginning and then I saw the end.
Look, I will say, like, we worked so hard that it was natural at the end. Yeah. But in the beginning, it was really difficult. You know, it wasn't just like we opened our mouths and we're like great singers, and we worked really hard at it. And I still don't think that I'm, you know, I can get by, but I wouldn't.
Agree to disagree.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that I've been making a lot of jokes tonight, and I think part of that is because, you know, this is an incredibly profound book, and it is very, very beautiful. And as I've said a number of times tonight, I think that it takes a lot of guts to be this vulnerable. And I think there's part of me that feels very, like I was saying earlier, just very protective of you and very proud of you. And so I feel like what you have offered all of us in telling this story and in sitting down with us tonight, you've already given us so much. And so I don't want to be one more person who asks for more. That being said, this book is incredible, and for those of you that haven't read it, I really recommend reading the book itself. There are text messages in here, there are song lyrics, it's incredibly intimate, but also the audiobook is really incredible. Riley does an amazing job with her piece. There's someone, I think her name is Julia Roberts, who records Lisa Marie. There's also some of Lisa Marie's voice in the audio. It's really can't miss, even if you have read the book. I really recommend listening to it in audio.
I do too, by the way. It's like really
it's a beautiful audiobook.
Yeah.
It really stands on its own. I really loved it. And so, like I said, I hate to ask more of you, but I also think that I want to touch a little bit on your experience of loss.
Uh-huh.
You have faced so much of it with such startling grace. And when people ask me what you're like, because a lot of my friends have crushes on you.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And it's, you know what? It's across the gender spectrum,
Really?
okay? You are really firing on all cylinders. Yeah. I can introduce you to some of them if you're interested, but I have told them that you're married.
I am, and I didn't know people had crushes on me, so it's good to know.
Oh, no, you're very popular. But I do get, there's like, oh, what's she like? And the thing that I always say, that I would never say to your face except now, is you have I always say she has every reason to be hardened and closed off and cold, and no one would blame her for it. But she is the warmest, most open-hearted person I've met. And I really stand by that. And I am curious how you stay so vulnerable and present in the face of what you've been through.
I think that, like, that's interesting. I think that partly has to do with my parents. I think both my parents, my mother and my father, existed and lived in such truth and presence, and were so grounded. My father's still alive. But I think that growing up in that world with both parents, even though they've been through some crazy things and addiction, we're extremely sensitive and empathetic and grounded and living in reality despite the crazy circumstance. And I think that we were all like that to a degree, you know? What were the adjectives you used?
Oh, I said
Say
warm.
it again. I'm just kidding. Warm. No, I wouldn't describe my mom as warm all the time. But I think that
Open-hearted.
Open-hearted. Yeah, I think that I don't know why.
Yeah.
But I think that for me, it's my instinct in life is to surrender and be open-hearted, as opposed to feel victimized and angry.
You can tell. I think you can tell. And
I think just because for me it's actually more comfortable.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really moving years ago when you talked about it online was after your brother had passed, you became a death doula.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people here maybe don't know what a death doula is. Can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially like a birth doula, but for people who are dying. Mm-hmm. So it's someone to help during during the birthing process, someone during the dying process. And I think I just had it, and it's a little different to hospice, though they work in hospice often. I just had the desire to feel like I could do something in that space, I guess, you know? Yeah.
And has it brought you solace? I think death is one of the things that is, for some of us, the hardest to talk about and the hardest to think about, but you seem to have made a lot of peace with it, and I'm curious what advice you have for those of us less comfortable with it, how we can be more present about it.
Well, I'm definitely not like, you know, not, you know, it's there's still, it's such an unknown, right? And I think that I just choose to look at the unknown with wonder as opposed to fear. That's all I would say.
I can't do that, but I'm trying. I think that's I think part of what I admire about you and have long admired about you is that you do that. That you approach things with joy and wonder and acceptance.
Listen,
and
I also have like mad anxiety.
Yeah.
And like,
well, you don't lead with that.
And like, I'm totally insane too. Let's just be real.
Okay, fair. Okay. There are we've talked about this, there are such brilliant, joyful moments, singular moments in this book things that could only happen to the Presleys. You have Elvis putting his hand in a basset hound puppet to sing I Can't Help Falling in Love with Lisa Marie to say he's sorry. This one I thought was my personal favorite. You all eating McDonald's in Elvis's bed while people are touring Graceland down below. Elvis at a parent-teacher conference. Lisa Marie calling you on your 17th birthday and saying, hey, come get dinner, and it turns out Robert Plant was there.
So cool in Brentwood.
So cool. So I want to end by asking you to read one more thing, which is this great piece that you have here. Just right between us. The two between, yeah.
Sometimes when I watch videos of Elvis performing, I think about the fact that if he hadn't done exactly what he did in exactly that moment in time, if he hadn't walked into the right building, recorded the right song, danced the way he did in front of the right person, there would be no Elvis Presley. We probably would have lived somewhere in Mississippi. I didn't even finish high school in this version of my life, so I can't imagine where I'd be in that one. My great-grandfather drove trucks. Maybe we would have carried on that tradition. Maybe we would have made furniture in Tupelo. My mom would have ended up in jail for sure.
So it's just so well written. But Elvis did walk into that building, right? And all of you, from that moment on, probably prior to that moment, some cosmic, genetic, whatever it is, are such brilliant, talented artists with so much that you have offered the world. And so my last question is, whatever the Presley name has meant up until now, what do you hope it means for you and for Tupelo and for your sisters for the future?
That's a very good question. I get asked a lot on this book tour, like, how did I avoid the curse of the Presleys? And it's such a weird question because I think the word curse is used because my family are looked at as like this not real, like mythology or something, you know? Right. But really it's just like a very common things like addiction. Yeah. I think everyone in here has loved somebody with addiction issues, you know? Or has lost somebody tragically, you know? And so I think that, like, are you more talking about perception or just within our home?
I'm saying what is just for you, because ultimately we can't control how they perceive us, right? But what does it mean for you?
For me, it's just I think, I guess, acceptance of what is, probably. Not to be like really ambiguous, but
well, no, but I think that's, to me, this book is so wonderful for a number of reasons, but one of the things I felt at the end, and I don't know if you did, was that yes, there are generations of this family and we have lost some of them, but you have 2 young sisters,
Yeah.
you have Tupelo, you have your husband. This is a big family, and there's a lot more coming for all of you, whatever that is that you decide.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that the future generations of our family aren't, you know, aren't going to struggle so much with addiction.
Yeah.
You know, like, of course, that's the dream.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that also there's a surrender in me to, like, that's a greater surrender to whatever is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
You know,
You're ready for whatever's coming.
I'm ready. Not really.
But it was a good line to end on.
It was a good ending.
You know what I mean? Riley, thank you so much for being here with us tonight.
Taylor.
Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you for coming.